Well, we're all having a wonderful time. Why don't we just move here? I wonder how many people say that to themselves after spending a day in the wonderland of Sugarbush Valley. What a place. Well, we'd like for you to meet 4 people who are doing more than just talk about it. They are genuine urban transplants. Now, they all lead very different lives. They all come from very different backgrounds. But together, I think they'll help give us all a sense of the dichotomy of people that make up Sugarbush Valley. Good morning, Vincent. Good morning, John.
Hi, Eileen. You're right, Vincent did it. Now, here's Vincent Sardi, owner of the world-famous Sardi's in Manhattan. He comes up here to go skiing. He winds up building a house. That's quite a step for you to take.
Well, I came up here because of horses, not skiing. Started with skiing, but then I used to drive the milkman's horse when I was a kid around Manhattan. Came up here one summer, and here's a bunch of guys playing polo with ski poles and a volleyball. And I thought, that's for me, that's for me. And I came up here and started coming all year round, riding horses, joined a polo club. We made a polo club, joined a hunt. And it's wonderful to look out and see not only mountains, but your own horse.
Well, you know, there are other people with us that are also, where they were well entrenched in the New York society, had a great life there. Pierre and Mary Maufoy. Now, Pierre was a hairstylist in New York, and Mary, a professor of anatomy. Now, you two don't even ski, and yet you're up here. Why? What did you expect from Sugarbush when you moved here?
We were really looking for space, Eileen. Yeah. We had small children, and we just felt pretty cooped up. The sidewalks were a little too narrow for a twin carriage, and it was a nice thing to think about moving out.
So the space here...
Well, it's really amazing. New York's such a big city, but somehow it was too small. The space, we got tied in and with the children, and we decided that with fresh air in the country, and that was it. We packed up and left.
Certainly space here. Brian, will you introduce us to our 4th new friend?
Dennis McDonald came here a couple of years ago, and you had a great job in San Diego, California, lived the typical, beautiful American life, had 2 cars, and you gave it all up to come here to Sugarbush. How has it changed your life?
Well, it's changed in a lot of ways. I accomplished what I wanted to. I live in the country now, and I can live basically as I please, hunt and fish and do that type of thing. But on the other hand, it's made it very hard to live because, particularly in the valley, the wages aren't nearly what I was used to making. And housing is and always a problem. Very expensive and very hard to find. But it's worth it to me.
Who's the owner of Sardi's restaurant in Manhattan? Vincent, what's life up here really like?
Well, I tell you, I started coming up here, as most of the people did, skiing. I used to go to Stowe. And then Skitch Henderson and Ruth Henderson, very friendly with me and my wife, and they said, gee, we found a new place, Sugarbush, and we're going to rent an old farmhouse down there, and you want to join us? And we rented a farmhouse, an old house down here in Waitsfield. I had 4 children, and we had 1 John, and the water went into the tank like dribble, dribble, dribble. And there was 1 heater in the living room, and the temperature of the living room was about 150. Every other room was below 0. And that sort of turned me a little sour, but then Skitch and Ruth bought a new house, and we shared that house with them for a while. Kept coming up, and it was very exciting up here.
Were you accepted by the natives?
Well, that takes time. I know I was going down to Bisbee's hardware store, and for 4 years, every time I walked in there, all he did was say 30 cents or 40 cents and keep right on writing. About the 5th year I walked in there, he put his glasses up the top of his head, and he says, well, how are things in the city? And I knew I was in.
Well, what do you do for fun besides the natural things? I know you mentioned the horses before and the skiing, but do you, I want to keep on calling you outlanders. Are you sort of like a colony? Do you get together socially all the time?
Well, we had, originally, when we first started up here with skiing, we had Club 10, which is over right near the ski area, right at the bottom of the mountain there. And that's where you had this sudden glamour. I think it was the first discotheque in America. Olivier Coquelin, who started Le Club and the Hippopotamus and Arthur's and all that, he was the guy in charge of the club, and he started the disco.
Here in Sugarbush?
Right here in Sugarbush. We had people like Orsini, that has Orsini's restaurant, coming up here. Cassini, the stylist, and his brother, the Charlie Knickerbocker column. Skitch Henderson, Ethel Kennedy's family was here, so you had the Kennedys.
But what was it? What was the tomato war I heard about?
Well, that came on as it became more and more fun. The social part of it and the jet set thing led into the fun part of it, where they had tomato wars in the spring, they have egg throwing contests to see who can throw an egg the farthest without breaking it. And then along the line, the horses got into it. We started a stable right in Waitsfield, We used to have mock hunts, and as I said earlier, I was saying about playing polo with a volleyball. That's when I started coming on all year round. Got some horses. We started a real club. They have an excellent polo club here now.
Well, Vincent, that's fascinating. It really is.
You know, John, it's not all tomato fights and parties and skiing. This can be a tough life. What's it like to live here?
It's fun, but it is tough. The wages aren't very high. Consequently, I have to work. A lot of people have to work more than one job. I've worked several jobs since I got here. I worked at the Humane Society for a while, and I logged for a while, and built doll houses for a while.
Dennis, when you were in California, you made a lot of money, you had a great lifestyle. Do you regret leaving that?
No, not at all. I went back to see my folks 4 or 5 years ago, and San Diego had grown so much, it became so smoggy that I wasn't comfortable there at all. Despite the hardships of living here, this is, I think, certainly worth it to me. The summer is absolutely incredible. The winters tend to be a little long, and they seem to get a little longer every year.
You work as a carpenter now, but more and more people seem to be moving up here. And it's getting to be more populated every time you turn around. How's that going to affect your life in the future?
Well, it's a problem. I need the people here because it supports my job at the bar as well as my job as a carpenter. But on the other hand, it makes it harder for me to live because in the winter things get very expensive. The supermarket, the gas, everything goes up except my salary. And in that respect, it's difficult.
Is there any time at all for you to go out and party and ski?
I quit skiing 3 years ago. It got too expensive.
Well, you know, Dennis and Brian, there's a corollary over here because Pierre and Mary Maufoy moved here they wanted space. They left the city to find more space. Would any rural area have sufficed, or was there some magic in this beautiful place called Sugarbush?
Yes, at the time, and still is, there is a magic. When we left the big city, it would have been unrealistic on our part to leave the big city and move out in the woods or the rural life of Vermont. And what this area offered was a sort of blending of cosmopolitan life and the ruralness. And it was an easier transaction to make to the country. So we have enjoyed that.
Well, there's such a romantic side to this, but I know it's a lot of hard work. I mean, you make your own cheese, you bake your own bread. You really have returned to a very basic kind of way of living. How did a city girl adjust to that, Mary?
I think it was a chance to do something different. I think as a kid I had always wanted to live on a farm, and so this was a real opportunity to try to do some things on my own. And I've always worked, and having children, you know, one has some of those guilts about, you know, are you really being a housewife and mother too? And so, you know, it was an opportunity to do all that.
Do you depend more on each other?
Yes, and our friends also, on each other, and our neighbors' friends. We're close. We have many times gatherings together and potlucks and parties and things like this, and you get stuck, your pipe freeze. There's always somebody to help you around and lend a hand, which is very good. We built our barn with a barn raising, which was fantastic. When 90 people showed up, and we put up that barn in a day, and that was something just phenomenal.
Well, I'll bet you that collectively all of us in this room hope that there is not a change in the Sugarbush area because it is just so very, very perfect. And I know that all of us would love to live here. And we thank you for sharing your story with us.
Oh, thank
Mary,
you.
Pierre. Okay, John, Brian, I guess our day is about over, huh?
Thank you.
What an exciting day, too. Thank you,
I
Dennis.
feel like one of those old travelogues. It's time to bid a sad farewell to old Sugarbush.
Do we
Sure
have to
is.
leave? Can't we do our show here for every
You
day?
couldn't move here, Brian. See?
not a bad
Everyone's
idea.
dream. Well, let me walk you out here and show you
One last look?
One last look.
All right.
This beautiful place.
As we slowly sink into the west.
And head back to Boston.
No, actually, what's happening out here is from the west, we are seeing a storm come over the hill.
It's like a snowstorm. That's going to be nice for the skis.
Yes, well, there's no doubt it's a beautiful place. And if you can't move here, there's one thing you can do. You can visit Sugarbush. And I don't think you'll be sorry. It's a beautiful part of our New England area.
Thank you for being with us today. Have a good day.
Right. Bye-bye.
Later.